Hi, I'm Carol Hoffman and I'm going to show you how to make a pillowcase with a French seam. First of all, you take 2 yards. I like to make 2 cuts. It takes 1 yard to make a pillowcase of this cotton fabric, and it will, so 2 yards will make 2 pillowcases. I cut 2 at once, so that's why I'm showing you that. We always wash or rinse the fabric in cold water in the machine, then dry it. The reason we do that is it shrinks at least an inch when we wash it, and so we want to get that shrinkage out, and we also want to get the residue out from the dyes that might affect the children that are using these pillowcases. You also can see this. This is what happens to cotton when you wash it. And we have to use the French seam because we want no raw edges showing. So that's why we're using the French seam. I'm going to first put that fabric on here, match the selvages. Make sure the selvages match all the way down. I've lengthwise, okay, folded it lengthwise and put it on the ironing board and ironed it, and I have done that all the way down. Then I'm going to fold the fabric in half lengthwise so it will be about the size or shape of a regular pillowcase. And I'm going to put these selvages together. I want that together. I'm going to make sure there's no wrinkles in it, no other folds, and it's nice and flat. If you keep everything flat and square, you're going to have a nice pillowcase. Next, I'm going to go to the cutting room. I want the final cut to be 21 inches wide by 35 to 36 inches long. This fabric actually is a little short. It's going to be 33 and a half. My lowest one is 33 and a half. And so that's what I'm going to be cutting it. And that's okay. It's going to work. Pillowcases can be very forgiving. Remember, you're not making a bridal gown. It's just a pillowcase. So we do want it square. Want it square, that's important. I'm going to cut off the selvages. You got to cut off the selvages because they make it twist and not work if you don't. So I measured 21 inches across. I just used my stick. You can do whatever method you want to get the 21 inches, but I measured across all the way, marked it, and then I've marked it all the way along here. So it's 21 inches, and I'm going to cut off this selvage. I'm going to match these marks, draw my line, and then cut. I'm going to cut down the edge to get those selvages off, and I'll have a nice square, I should say rectangular, 21 inch wide pillowcase. On the bottom end, which will be the cuff end, this will be the cuff of the pillowcase, I'm going to have to cut it, which the shortest one is here along this edge, and it's 33 and a half. So I've marked 33 and a half, if you can zoom in on that, 33 and a half all along. Again, if you can get 35 or 36, that's the best. If you can't, just do what you can. If you get it down here into the 29s, then that's too small. Then you're going to have to do something else with that fabric. But this will be fine. I mark it, and I'm going to cut that. Cut it off. Okay, I'm finishing cutting the cuff end off, or the bottom end, or whichever end. And then I'm going to cut the top because I have a whole 2 yards here. I only want 1 yard. So I'm just going to cut this in half right along the fold. Some people are better than this than I am. I'll see if I get it nice and straight. Okay, after I get this cut, then I will have my 2 cuts for 2 pillowcases. Now I look and see if there's an up and a down to this fabric. These guys are going, his eyes are going up, his guys are going up the other way. Up this way, up this way. I don't think there's an up or a down. So if there is, I like to put the down where the cuff is. So you're putting the pillowcase on and the down is where the cuff is. That's not real important if you mess it up. So doesn't matter here. So I'm just going to pick an end and start pinning. Shut it off. Okay, I'm going to separate these two because I want to just work with one from now on to show you how to put it together or make it. So I'm going to put pins. I got 3 pins at the top. This is my folded edge. So I'll have one sewn edge, one folded edge, one top edge. This will be for the cuff later on. So I'm going to put 4 pins in one side and 3 in the top. Very careful to always use the same number of pins, so I always take the same number of pins out. I don't want a child being stuck with pins. Okay, we're ready to sew. This will be a 3/8 inch seam, and I'm going to sew. I usually start at the top because I want to end up with an open space, or at the open end. So I start at the top, just follow the guide on your machine, and just a regular stitch. And again, 3/8 inches. And you're going to do that all to both sides, top and sides. Those are the ones that are pinned. At the corner, I like to go ahead and finish off the corner, pick it up, and then start again so I have a nice square corner. And again, 3/8 inch all the way down. Shut it off. At the end of my sewing, for the first seam, I'm going to clip my threads. Always clip them. Make sure I've got all of those pins out. And at the end, I like to, can you see this? Clip it off and then clip in. So I'm making it's easier to turn. It makes a nicer point on the edge. Okay, next step is the ironing. Slip it over the ironing board, and what I want to do is iron these seams out. You know what? It doesn't matter if it goes to the right or the left, but I just have to get it one way so it's a nice flat seam. Okay, I do that to the top, and that's about as good as I can get it. That's okay. And then to the side, as far up as you can get it. And again, you won't get all the way up to the top. That's okay. And just make it nice and flat. Then you are going to turn this, and now we have our right sides together, which you're used to seeing. Poke out your points on your ends. You want those out nice. And if you've got a fancy way to do it, that's okay, but I just want to get them out there. Then I'm going to iron it again, and I'm going to iron these close to each other so the seam is together. Okay, so there's that seam. And then I've got the other seam. So I've got, again, the top seam and the side seam. And get those over using your fingers or whatever. Probably don't need to tell you how to iron. But you do want to get it together. Ironing's one of the most important parts of sewing these. You get at the finished edge when you do that. Okay? Done. Okay, now I'm placing, again, 3 pins in the top and 4 pins along the side. These are, get a close-up of that seam. These are the seams I just made and ironed open. Well, open and then closed. And I want to get those securely in there before I sew, because they will twist. When you get lazy and don't do it, they twist. So next I'm going to put it in here. This time I'm going to sew a 5/8 inch seam. This is the second seam. My right sides are together, and I've got a little seam inside there, and I've got to be sure to enclose all of that seam in this one. So that's why I do a 5/8 inch on the second one. Make sure you get a good start. You go ahead and go down along this side, and then the top with your 5/8 inch seam all the way. 6-inch seam that I'm putting in. And you can see I've again started two. I don't just turn. I finish one and then start the other. That makes a nice square seam at the corner. And that's what you want. You want that square corner. I finish that seam, and I'm not going to be clipping anything this time because this is what's called a French seam. Whoever does it the fastest wins, right? Clip your threads and take out those pins. You don't want to stick yourself or anybody else with the pins. Do not clip any corners, okay? I'm only clipping my threads off of the corner, but don't clip your corners because you want that to be an unraveled seam there. So you can see this is the French seam. You've actually got one seam inside of another. Okay, now I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. I'm going to show you what that looks like on the inside. It looks just like a regular seam, but you don't have any on the inside. Outside's a regular seam. Inside, you don't have any raw edges. That's the French seam. Okay, now I'm going to take it to the ironing board. I think I said sewing machine, but you're going to take it to the ironing board, sorry. And I'm going to do the same thing. I don't turn it this time. I'm just going to iron those seams down as good as I can. And my next thing will be, after I get the seams, again, doesn't matter which way that seam goes, just one way or the other, just so it's nice and flat on the other side and on this side. Now I'm going to turn up 1 inch. 1 inch, and no more than 1 inch on this one, because remember, this is a little bit shorter. So I'm going to turn up about 1 inch and just iron that. Do not pin it. Do not pin it. Iron that all the way around. You can shut it off.
Okay.
Okay, I've got the 1 inch hem turned up, and then I'm no pins. Don't want any pins because that's just going to be the nice clean edge. And then I'm going to turn up 3.5 inches. I want my cuff to be 3.5 inches. No more than that. And believe it or not, as many times as I've done this, I still have to measure it every time. I can't eyeball it for some reason. So I'm going to pin it along with ironing it up, of course. 3.5 inches. See? I have to get that. And I put about 4 pins in the hem. You can turn it off. Okay? I've got my hem turned up 3.5 inches, and I've got my pins in, and the last thing I'm going to do is sew the cuff. Make sure that your bobbin has a nice sew to it. It's not, too tight, because that's what's going to show on the pillowcase side. So I start and I sew it real close to the edge, as close as I can safely get, and I just kind of follow my presser foot right along there, holding at both edges because you don't want it to buckle. And you can see why I use pins, because it will slip. The other thing you have to do is be careful this underneath doesn't get caught in. I've done that a couple times. We all like to pick out our threads and start over. Go ahead and turn it off. Okay, after you get to the end, double it back and make sure it's caught tight. And then you're going to clip off those threads and pull out your pins. And I've got a nice looking bobbin stitch. Get a close up of that. See, it looks real nice. It looks just like the top stitching. So, and that's what you want it to look like. Okay, next I'm going to go to the ironing board and finish. I want to make very careful, double sure that I've got all of those pins out. I don't want any children getting stuck with pins. I've got them all out, secured. I'm going to turn the pillowcase. Push out those ends again. Now you got a big bunch there. It's okay. Just push it out the best you can. There's nothing you can really do about it. And you're going to sew or iron it so that it's nice and flat. You've already ironed it once that way. One of the things I like to do is to take my forceps, if you have forceps, and I like to pull out that corner with the forceps. If you don't, then you can use your finger. I've got a thread in there. I'll be cutting that off in a minute here. Then iron it, and you have a completed pillowcase. Always be sure to put that final ironing touch on it. I like to select fabric that's good for children of school age, not babies. The kids that go to this camp are, again, of anywhere from 6 to 15. So I try to select appropriate. They don't like flowers and things like that. They don't like grandma pillowcases. They want kids' pillowcases. So there I go. There's my pillowcase. Voila. Thank you.